everybody. How y'all doing? It's Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. If you hear some noise in the background, I'm sorry. It's Paw Patrol. My daughter's watching Paw Patrol. Okay. Um, so just bear with. I'm gonna try to do 15, 20 minutes tops. Okay. Let me put a timer on. Seriously. My time is set now. All right. So what we're talking about now is I believe I put on there who broke your heart. Discovering the root of your abandonment and rejection. And so, if you're a mother hustler, then you are on the path to becoming your best self, right? Which involves a process of healing. And that is where I want to focus the brand because I feel like so many people um, miss that part, especially when it comes to, being a mother and wanting to, bring your child up to where they do not have to have a childhood that they have to heal from, as well as, entrepreneurship. Sometimes we end up missing the mark a lot of times because we're not able to build healthy connections um, with others who, may come across our path to aid us because we have skipped or passed this process of healing. And so healing is very important when it comes to being a mother hustler. In fact, that is the main thing about being a mother hustler. The hustler is for healing, okay? So back to the topic, who broke your heart? So I'm going to share just a little bit about, some of the things that I have discovered, um, as well as experience and came to learn and know from my own process of healing. And so, on this process, of course, it has, its ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster. For me, I have learned to celebrate my small wins um, as they come because there's always work to do, right? So, as you progress through this process, it's best to celebrate your wins because there is always more work to do. And so I've come to a process, or to a place, a phase rather, in my process of healing where I feel like I am at the depths, right? At the core of a lot of where roots have taken place. And so I'm here at this root, and for me, it happens to be the root of abandonment, the issue of abandonment and rejection. And so typically what happens a lot of time in healing, as you communicate to God, what, you know, uh, I guess as you're vulnerable with God is what I'm going to say. As you're vulnerable with Him, um, then it's kind of like a walk. It's just a day-to-day walk, and things will come to your mind. Typically, maybe it's something that you has that has been buried, or something that maybe you may not have been knowledgeable about at all, but it will come to your mind. And so I find that when those things happen, I'm like, okay, this is being brought to my attention for a reason. And so I have come to see that abandonment has been the root of a lot of the issues that I have found myself in up into my adulthood. And how does that work exactly, right? How are you an adult and you're just now realizing these things? Well, many of us in society, we're not taught to take the time to heal. When we encounter trauma, when we encounter issues, when we encounter negligence, whatever the case may be, we're not taught to heal. We're not taught to, go see a counselor. We're not taught to talk about our issues. A lot of times we feel like we can't trust anybody with our issues, and so we keep them within. We just pack on, we pack on, we pack on, we pack on, issue after issue after issue. not realizing, the pain that we are causing ourselves. And so, I've come to this point now in my life where have realized that a lot of the problems that I have faced have come from the root of abandonment. And I had to go back, all the way back to when this first occurred. And so for me, it was when my parents divorced. So I was a daddy's girl. Um, my dad was my guy. And my parents divorced. And as a young child, which just tends to happen a lot of times, we don't necessarily know what really went on or what occurred. We just know that, mom is gone, or we know that, dad is gone, right? And so not having an understanding as to what occurred, you're kind of just left with your own imagination as to, what may have happened. And so for me, that was my first experience of abandonment. And some years after that, losing my grandfather had passed away, and my grandfather was my love. I absolutely adored my grandfather, and so when he passed, he died of a heart attack. I was devastated, and I believe I was 12 or 13, maybe around the time that this occurred. And so, when you lose your best friend, for some of us that can be, for some of us, that can be traumatic. When you lose somebody who's very close to you, someone that you were able to confide in, someone who was a protector, a provider for you, someone who was in your corner, losing that person can be very devastating. And maybe, it was another family member. Maybe it was, a sister or brother or aunt, just whomever. Sometimes the loss of these people can be very traumatic for us. And so when we don't deal with them, when we don't take the time to heal from them, what we end up doing is coping, right? We end up self-medicating ourselves in order to get through, day to day sometimes, right? And so what does that look like? What does coping look like? What does self-medicating look like for some of us? Well, that could look like a lot of things. That can look like, jumping or getting into, unhealthy relationships. That can look like, being dependent upon someone that you know now, that is not good for you, right? That can look like excessive spending habits, to the point of where you're broke and having to borrow money from, other people. That can look like, partying at the club, every other night, or, just drinking yourself till you can't walk, taking prescription drugs, or, smoking yourself until you just have, no consciousness of what is in front of you, right? So it can look like a lot of different things. And what happens is in our way of dealing with this trauma, dealing with this issue of abandonment that we have experienced, what we do is we end up burying ourselves into other issues, right? And we end up throwing ourselves into other cycles. And now we're just on a cycle that is never going to stop until something else happens so worse that it throws us off to the point that we have to just sit still and be like, okay, something ain't right here. Something has to be done, or until we just wake up to a reality or get some kind of clarion call that, okay, something is going on, something is missing in my life, and I need to take a serious look at it and figure out what is going on. And so, like I said, I've been doing this work, I've been on this path of healing, and I have come to realize that a lot of my issues have come from this root. And so, visiting that experience for me of when my parents first divorced and what I felt like losing my dad, what that did was that took a part of me, right? A part of me left. And so in search of that piece or that part that was gone, I created certain cycles, I created certain behaviors to be able to cope, to be able to deal with, to be able to survive. And so that's what has happened with a lot of us. A lot of these habits and these things that we have developed, a lot of these attitudes, a lot of these moods, the list just goes on. These masks, okay? Those aren't even us. They don't belong to us. They were just something that we put on, just a cape or a cloak that we put on to survive, right? To survive the pain, to survive the loss of the loved one, all right? And so I asked the question, who broke your heart or what broke your heart? Maybe you yourself go back to a place, if you can, to the first place, right? The first place where you experience heartbreak, where you experience a loss, or where you experience abandonment. And recognize it, look at it for as is. And sometimes you have to ask questions. Like I had to come to the realization, even though, growing up afterwards, you learn certain things about, what may have occurred or what truly happened. Even still, though, it's totally different from being able to sit and dig with it and research. And so a lot of times you're drawn to ask questions. And I know for me, what I've come to realize and in the same time have compassion on myself is that, we were just doing the best that we could, right? To get through, to get by. And that is a story of many of us, that we were just doing the best that we knew how, in our adolescence, whatever stage of life that you find yourself where the incident may have occurred, you were just doing the best that you could to get by. And so I just want to bring that to you guys' attention. And what you'll find is that from that point, you probably end up clinging to a lot of things that weren't even for you, but it was just how you got through life. It was just how you coped through life. You probably found yourself hanging amongst people, that provided you some type of warmth because, you were missing your father, or you were missing your grandmother, or, your mom wasn't around, but, your crew was always there, right? And so, maybe with being amongst the crew, you found yourself in other issues, taking on certain other habits or, doing certain things that, you wouldn't have done, but because, that was your environment, that was your crowd, that was what provided you some type of warmth and some type of coping to get through your day-to-day. That's just where you found yourself. And so I want you, from that perspective, to extend yourself grace. To extend yourself grace. Knowing that you were doing the best that you knew how at the time. One of the biggest things that we share in common as human beings is just surviving, right? Just navigating our way through after extending myself grace, what I have come to do at the same time is I am having conversations with my Father. And so with these conversations, I'm learning about Him, right? Things that I did not know about Him. And so what that does for me, I described today, is like it's adding glue to places where there were cracks, to places where there were voids, to places where there were holes. You know, it's allowing pieces to come back together. Maybe it will lead you down a similar path where you're talking to, whomever it is, in order to get back to you, right? Because that is what all of this work is about at the end of the day, is becoming our best selves, is healing so that we can meet our full potential. It doesn't matter how you get there, all right? Remember that. Because I think a lot of times we judge ourselves and we judge other people too much on how they get to that path, when we're all totally different people coming from totally different backgrounds. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you do the work. I just want to wish you guys, just peace, light, and love on your path. And don't give up. Know that this work that you are initiating, know that no matter, and even, let me just say this, and no matter how bad it hurts, right? Because it can bring up, some of the places that we have been can bring up so much pain. But no matter how bad it hurts, know that the work that you are doing is going to yield a return, right? It may not feel good at first, right? It may not feel good at first. But know that in the end, it is going to work for your greater good. It is going to work for your benefit. I have to put the shovel down sometimes. We just keep the digging and digging at this root. We're working this root, chiseling at this root, this thing here. And sometimes we get tired. Go ahead. And sometimes we get tired, right? And we'll want to put the shovel down. It's okay to put the shovel down, right? For a period of time so that you can get the rest that you need, because that is necessary when healing, right? However, don't leave it there. Don't settle in your pain. Pick it back up and continue to plow, continue to do the work so that you can achieve all that there is in life for you. Sometimes we allow our mindsets to get stuck in the places that we were, right? We allow our mindsets to stay in the places of our experiences. And then we end up neglecting what is possible for us, right? We settle because we believe that based on this experience, based on my grandmother telling me that I would never be anything, based on my father turning his back on, me and my mother, based on whatever the situation was, we feel like we don't deserve the best. And that is a lie. Okay? That is a lie. We deserve everything and more that this world has to offer, but you have to be willing to go for it. And in order to go after it, you have to first feel like you are worthy of it. And in order to feel like you are worthy of it, you have to know who it is that you are.